What's up, everybody? Armchair Quarterbacks here for another Week 10 recap. On this one, we have This Hoe Slaps versus Waddle Waddle Waddle. That is Alex losing with a score of 89.72 points to Ken's winning team of 132.42 points. All right, so let's take a look over here at Alex's team really quick. Let's start talking about his team here with Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs, 14 rushing attempts, 77 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Also getting involved in the passing game. He had 5 targets, 3 receptions for 35 yards. So we were talking about earlier Gibbs and Montgomery, how this usage kind of was playing out. And we were talking off recording as well, how it was weird seeing the game kind of flipped a little bit with Jahmyr Gibbs getting more usage in the end zone and Montgomery getting more usage in the midfield. How do you think moving forward this pretty much running back committee is going to play out? Do you think it's going to be 50-50 still, or do you think Gibbs has established his role to get more usage than more snap count usage than Montgomery?
I don't think it's clear cut as Jahmyr Gibbs is now the guy. He's the 1A. The encouraging thing, and this is kind of what makes it so easy to root for me at least, to root for Dan Campbell. I don't watch Hard Knocks or any of that jazz, but just to see Detroit, just to see like the way Jared Goff plays for him, and he's just kind of that journeyman. Nothing crazy, nothing flashy. You don't see that dude pull a Deshaun Watson, no drama.
Right.
This team is just like entirely so easy to root for. From Alex Hutchinson, like the defense, the offense, Laporta, and then specifically here with Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs kind of played his way into this role right now with the usage that he's getting, and he has a hot hand. So if you ask me, I think it's going to be a hot hand situation. It's encouraging to see Dan Campbell has kind of the flexibility and the humbleness or the humility to say, you know what, we're going to give the young kid more of everything, like more rushing attempts and more receiving. So he's going to get this receiving. He's got the attempts, and now he's getting the red zone, the goal line looks, where it was specifically always Monty.
Right.
Well, that's pretty legit. So I think it's going to be the hot hand approach, and they'll both be used. That's a great offense.
I agree. All right. So quickly touching over Alexander Madison. He left this game fairly early on. He ended up leaving the game with a concussion. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Vikings do moving forward with their rushing game. They did sign early today, I believe it was, Myles Gaskin. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be interesting to see what their running back field is going to look like. But right now, their offense is pretty much all passing attack. All right, so let's talk about.
They got it.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say with Madison, they got it late. It looks like it's a Sunday night game against my Broncos, and it's in Denver. Typically, I'll just say that we know that typically this season, especially with the whole Tua rule, you're typically not going to see a guy with a concussion come back the next week. They're going to be out for a week. So
let's talk about here Derrick Henry. How do you feel about Derrick Henry moving forward?
Pretty much the same everyone felt before the season started, kind of the running back cliff. I wasn't as big on it as some other people, but apparently the pros and the analysts were kind of correct on this in terms of just consistency and usage was seeing once running backs hit that certain age. Mm-hmm. It's really weird, I guess. I mean, because we saw a couple games where he was King Henry again. But
yeah, and it was the 2 or 3 games before this game.
I'm going to say I'm not going to let this game specifically be indicative of that. because Tampa Bay has had a really, really good run defense for past several years already.
Yeah, the
Going
game
back to
script
even
in
with
this
Tom
one was
Brady.
definitely getting away from Derrick Henry.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it was a low scoring game. We already know that. Tennessee already doesn't like to pass the ball, but they have Tajay Spears as their receiving back. So, um, Derrick Henry will be okay, but he's not gonna. It's not gonna be anything. That's not. He's not what he once was.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's something to be concerned of depending on the matchup.
Mm-hmm.
But rest of season, his matchups, I believe they kind of get a little bit easier.
Let's
It's
see.
it's still going to be interesting to see though, because Tajay Spears is there to bolster up the backup role, and he's been playing really well.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. DK Metcalf, Marquise Brown. So he does have Tyreek Hill.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. At this point, Alex has some options here if he really wanted to. He could package Derrick Henry for another wide receiver, or
Yeah,
package maybe Derrick Henry plus Marquise Brown or DK Metcalf or someone else.
yeah.
That's what I would
I'm
be looking to do.
sitting here with seeing the 2.5 points here. I'm curious to see. I'm curious to know how Alex is feeling about this because I did make an offer for Derrick Henry. I forget how long
Mhm.
ago it was, but it was fairly recent, and obviously it didn't happen. So I'm curious to see how he's feeling on this one here, holding on to Derrick Henry.
Yeah, he still has Tyreek Hill on his bench. So I mean, he's got he's got some depth he could trade with. I traded
Mm-hmm.
him, Cooper, and Amari Cooper looks really good. His playoff schedule might not be the best. I think, but still, he's gonna get that usage.
Yeah, he's definitely going to get usage for sure. All right, so speaking of depth here, let's talk about Alvin Kamara. His usage has gone down since he pretty much came back from his suspension. Um, but he's still seeing a good amount of usage, and I think the usage going down is a byproduct of pretty much the past few weeks. The Saints have been starting to use Taysom Hill a little bit more. He's their gadget player that they kind of use everywhere. And that's, I think, that one thing plus the fact that Derek Carr hasn't been playing so well has been affecting Alvin Kamara. How do you feel about that?
Yes and no, because as long as Derek Carr's there, he's gonna get his dump offs. I mean, he still had seven receptions, 7 targets.
Mm-hmm.
Typical Alvin Kamara, and then 33 yards. So really ugly there. 42 yards on the rushing is not bad.
Yeah.
So really solid stat line here with the receiving work to bump that. As far as the Taysom Hill thing, as you said, that's all predicated on whether they get down to the red zone in the first place. If they're not hitting the red zone as much, then Taysom Hill's not gonna, you're not looking at him as much of a threat. And so that goes. Michelle had Taysom Hill,
Mm-hmm.
so you're gonna live with those boom weeks up and down. But I think Kamara, he'll still be consistent. He has a touchdown here, and now he has over 20 points.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's talk about Jared Goff really quick. Do you feel like Jared Goff is good enough to start rest of season?
Yeah, definitely good enough. I would say he's a safe play, but I don't think he's going to be necessarily a ceiling play, especially if you have those running backs
Yep.
there. But at that point, on a good offense, that is basically what you want. You just want any piece of that good offense. So
Yeah, just hoping that the opposing team, whichever team that they're playing against, they can at least kind of keep up. So that way it forces the Lions to still have to throw the ball.
And I mean, they have a decent schedule coming up. What is this? We're going to be in week 11 here. They have Chicago, a couple of tough matchups here. Green Bay, New Orleans. The good thing is Green Bay's at home.
Yep.
New Orleans is in New Orleans, but that's a dome game. So then you get Chicago, Denver, Minnesota, Dallas. That's not bad.
Yeah, going into the playoffs, this should be pretty decent.
So, yeah, I mean, I like them more than he doesn't have a bye anymore. So, at this point, you could even If I was Alex, I'd probably drop Sam Howell. There's no point in having him here.
Yeah, or try to see if you can package Sam
Packaging
Howell to
for
somebody
trade.
that needs a quarterback.
Yep. To that Sam Howell and Derrick Henry.
All right, so let's move over to Ken's team over here. Keenan Allen showing some youth once again. 11 receptions, 175 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. This was a really good game for Keenan Allen.
If you look at, I mean, you already had Austin Eckler and you saw the receiving work he got.
Yep.
And he scored a touchdown too, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
I mean, his stat line was solid with the rush and the receiving. And then Keenan Allen here tops it off to 14 targets, 11 receptions, 175, and 2 TDs. That's perfect. You know, there's nothing more you could ask for. 36 points. You're basically fulfilling 2 spots on your roster at this point with that many points. So, phenomenal game by him. And like you said earlier in another video, we called this game was probably going to be the game of the week. So,
yeah. All right, so let's also talk about here Josh Jacobs. He's been a very interesting player this year. He's getting a good amount of usage. It's just, has it been efficient or not? And yesterday, it was pretty efficient. He had 27 rushing attempts for 116 yards. He had 2 receptions for 11 yards. The only thing that was missing here was the touchdown. Now, my question for you with Josh Jacobs is, how confident do you feel in starting him rest of season?
as long as he's getting this usage, I mean, what was this, 2 games now? And you look at, he was already getting decent usage when Josh McDaniels is there, but since he's been fired and Antonio Pierce has taken over, 26 rushing attempts, 27 rushing attempts. I mean, the only thing that's missing here is his receiving work compared to the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
So you're hoping that his target share goes up a little bit more, but right now, with Jimmy G out, you're basically looking at Hayden O'Connell playing, which I think he's okay. I like the kid. I think maybe sometimes it might be too safe. It's not as aired out, but I think he's pretty solid in terms of fantasy purposes. You know?
Yeah, he hasn't looked horrible. He's been, I've definitely seen him making some rookie mistake reads, but he's also been making some pretty decent reads in terms of going through his progression, going to his first option, second option, third option. The only thing that's missing here is just going to the check down.
Yep.
All right, so James Conner, this is his first game back along with Kyler Murray. He had 73 rushing yards on 16 attempts. Does that instill confidence in you? It's basically saying like Arizona is going to be using him still?
Oh, yeah. I mean, before he got hurt, he was being used and he was, I mean, the offense felt like it was being ran through him. So at this point, if my boy Trey McBride could be good, if Kyler Murray, there was a couple times where, man, he was running out on some of the scrambles and, you know, you just see his little nub running fast, those little feet, dude. He looks pretty good, so hopefully he can stay healthy, and that'll be a huge part for James Conner here with a dual threat on the rushing.
Yeah. Good thing is for the Cardinals, both players looked healthy.
Yeah. And I mean, James Conner does have a history of, you know, getting injured, but and if he's healthy and he's, you know, he's been decent for Arizona ever since Pittsburgh traded him.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I've always been a James Conner fan. You know, he.
Have you though? I remember when he was with Pittsburgh, you had a nickname for him. Do you remember what it was?
What was it? Glass?
James Glass Conner. Because he was always injured when he was with Pittsburgh.
He was always injured, but I feel like what was it? Did I trade I had the trade in your work league. I think it was James Conner with James Conner and Stephon Diggs. Those are 2 players that hold soft spots in my heart, mainly because of like the sentiment of this is the first time I really did a home league redraft versus DFS.
Yeah.
you know. So obviously in redraft, you're going to have the same players throughout the season. So you'll have that, the love-hate relationship. It's not like DFS where you could just, whatever your
You're
salary
changing
is, you
your
just punt it.
lineup out every week.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of like real life, like just kind of like same thing with Austin Eckler. He's frustrating too when he gets the usage from especially before um Kellen Moore came there and it was
Yeah,
just splitting with. He still splits.
with
I
Josh
mean, there
Kelly.
were several times, yeah, with Josh Kelly. I was like, oh man, dude. Um, yeah, I think James Conner is gonna be fine, man.
All right, for sure. I agree. I was actually looking to try and trade for Connor before this week's game. It was kind of rough trying to find like any trades this week.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, some people are kind of, that's been our tips. Don't be set on your lineups.
Mhm.
Uh, don't think your own poo smell better than everyone else, but you got to make adjustments. This is basically what fantasy redraft is in a home league. Is it's all about making adjustments.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about one more player here on Ken's starting roster. Let's talk about Brian Robinson. He had a really good game here. He had 8 rushing attempts for 38 yards. That's okay. But he had very efficient passing game. He caught all 6 of his targets for 119 yards and a touchdown. How do you feel this usage between Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson's going? I mean, it's been back and forth. There have been games where I've seen Antonio Gibson get a little bit more usage, but he's not been efficient. And then the games that I have seen Brian Robinson get more usage, I've felt like he's been way more efficient than Gibson. Do you feel like moving forward, the Commanders are going to start to try to utilize Robinson more?
I mean, you could definitely tell there was a point in the season where it kind of shifted over to Brian Robinson being the
Hmm.
dude. Um, I believe even a couple weeks ago in one of the recaps, I ended up saying Antonio Gibson is droppable at this point
Yeah.
for whoever had him in our league, and um, Antonio Gibson is still something I can't really trust with Brian Robinson being there. Um, I believe you and me were both pretty high on him during the draft, and um, I was only a couple spots away from getting him, and I was kind of bummed when he went. But I do think that they will give it to him. You know, Antonio Gibson will still be a threat there,
Right.
but if you're seeing Brian Robinson as the main rushing dude, you know, and then now they're increasing his role to giving him the receptions as well. It just shows how much they really trust this kid in all game scripts. So
Yeah.
that's really encouraging if you're a Brian Robinson owner.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. All right, so let's take a look here really quick at the benches. We already talked about Amari Cooper. Really, there's not much left on the bench. Tonight's game, the Buffalo-Denver game, Cortland Sutton had some pretty good looks.
Mhm.
You've talked about the Broncos offense. That's your team there. You mentioned that their offense is actually looking pretty good, and I watching this game tonight, like actually being able to focus on the one game, I can see what you mean. The Russell Wilson, he's starting to look pretty decent again. He hasn't gotten back to form, like the Super Bowl championship form, but he's looking good. He's making decent reads. He's getting out of the pocket and scrambling pretty decently. It's just sometimes there's kind of bonehead mistakes and their defense isn't playing very well.
I'll say their defense has played phenomenal ever since kind of that um, being blown out 20-70 against Miami. They didn't fire Vance Joseph, so their defense has played good. It's not their defense now. They actually, I believe they let go of Randy Gregory, got rid of some key pieces on the defense.
Mhm.
Basically said, you know what, we don't care if you're quote unquote the best players on our team. We don't care about your contract. They let go of some, for what was for the past several years, some keystone pieces for the defense.
Maybe something negative in the locker room.
I was going to say, just to clear up, to show that there was, Sean Payton was basically saying, hey, there's consequences now for the team,
Yeah. Yeah.
even if it's just your attitude. But so that was really huge there. And me, I'm a Vance Joseph hater, but good for good for him. It's good. I root for the underdog. So if this dude pulls it around, more power to him. I'll cheer him on. I won't necessarily say that their offense is good. What I've been telling you throughout this season is Russell Wilson's not primarily the problem. He's not the problem.
Right.
I mean, if you look at it, it's Jerry Jeudy giving up on blocks, giving up on plays. He looked good tonight. The game was closer. But if you looked at, I mean, how many 3-and-outs did you see from both teams? Fumbles, interceptions from both teams. And it's almost like these two teams were basically fighting to see who would lose the game first, basically.
Right.
Even down to special teams with Will Lutz, Sean Payton's dude from New Orleans, missing one and then potentially the game winner before the 12 men on the field. So
yeah, I was calling that out. I was telling Jess before, like, Buffalo making that bonehead mistake. They would have won it. They just had to count to 11, but they couldn't.
I saw a joke thread somewhere too that someone said the 12th man was DeMar Hamlin out there. I don't know. I didn't see all the players on defense and every person, but that would have been pretty funny too.
Oh man.
So yeah, I mean, Cortland Sutton is Russell's guy.
Yeah.
But Russell Wilson in this offense, this is one of the reasons why I never pick my Broncos for fantasy football, is just because you don't know. Even Javonte Williams, great game tonight, but a lot of the better offenses have, signature pieces like a Stephon Diggs, a Tyreek Hill. For fantasy purposes and gambling, it's kind of harder on the Broncos.
Yeah. For sure. All right. Well, that'll be it for this Week 10 recap. Congrats again on your win there, Ken. Better luck to you next week, Alex. Hopefully not too much. Good luck for both of you next week. Ken, I was hoping you wouldn't blow out Alex this much. But either way, again, congrats and good luck next week. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.